Welcome to the Germinate podcast, where agriculture, business, and innovation take root and thrive. I'm Joe Sampson, and with nearly 2 decades of experience in agricultural equipment and scaling businesses, I'm here to bring you actionable insights, inspiring stories, and strategic advice. Whether you're an industry veteran or just starting out, this podcast is your guide to cultivating ideas, expanding your knowledge, and growing your venture. So let's get started and germinate your path to success. Hey folks, welcome back to the Germinate podcast. Today we got a special guest, Michael Bird from Spindustry. We talked a couple of weeks ago, maybe Michael, and at the time I was like, man, this should be a podcast right here. Because you're all things marketing and all things branding and all things advertising. And yeah, go into that. Talk about who you are and your company and give us a little opening here.
I think you did it. I'll add you to the sales team. No,
okay, there you
go. I'm Michael Bird, president of Spindustry, and we've been doing this for just at 30 years. Next year will be a 30-year mark. So, and we have always been a data-focused company since 30 years ago. We're one of the few web companies that was founded by a information systems major as opposed to a graphic designer. I love graphic designers too, but always have come at it from a data standpoint. So our company, 30 years later, does websites, e-commerce sites, the digital marketing and traditional marketing around it that gets people to those websites. And then we do SharePoint and Office 365 work to help with communication between your companies and their stakeholders and all that kind of stuff too. So very digital company, very strategic company, and a little traditional marketing thrown in for good measure.
Nice. Yeah, we were kind of introduced through Farm Equipment Manufacturing Association, FEMA, which is a lot of these followers of this show are going to be FEMA members. So I'm trying to think when we met, but that's when we first initially met. So before we dive into the nuts and bolts of branding and all that stuff, which you're clearly an expert at, talk about your relationship with FEMA and why you picked that organization over many of the others to choose from.
Sure. So like I said, we've been around for about 30 years, but probably for the last, 20 or so, I mean, we grew up with the internet, right? So the internet got more and more serious, moving from a brochure to e-commerce to social media and phones and all the stuff we've seen happen, right? So we cut our teeth on a really big site called brownells.com in the armament space, and they had 100,000 SKUs and of products and lots of categorization, lots of traffic, did a lot of that work. And so then we took the next step from there and said, what other industries have lots of SKUs, lots of equipment to sell, need help? And there's probably automotive and agriculture and a few other places to think about going. And so we ended up going in the ag direction. I have a lot of people with ag backgrounds, obviously, here in Iowa. And so that made a lot of sense. And then, we knew several people in FEMA and had some that were already clients, and got a speaking opportunity there in 2020, I believe, during the pandemic.
Yep,
and,
I remember that. Yeah.
And we presented a study on, and we're actually doing a refresh version of that at this spring's conference with FEMA.
Where
nice. We refreshed so we interviewed like 1,000 farmers about how they buy, how much online plays a role, how much marketing plays a role in what they buy. And then again, we refreshed that data in 2024 here that we're going to present at different places. So we got involved with FEMA and EMDA and AAM and some other organizations. And it's just a great opportunity to meet with manufacturers and dealers and distributors in the space who all need help connecting with their end customer, whoever that end customer might be.
Yeah.
We've met a lot of great people and a lot of great companies, and just helped out some. There's still lots we can help more, but it's been a real good journey of helping them just get the word out. They've done all the hard stuff. I don't know how to build a tractor, barely know how to drive one, right? But they've done all the hard part. They've done all this really great work in the manufacturing space, and all we're trying to do is help them tell their story and get it in front of the right people, and they just let us do that. It's great.
Yeah. And you've nailed it. You guys, your team has nailed it by understanding the way FEMA works. I mean, you can't just dabble in it. You got to show up all the time. And you guys have absolutely nailed that since you've been coming. I don't know when you started going, but was it 2020 or?
Yeah, right around then. We'd known about it before then, but obviously then with the pandemic things, were affected. And then we really wanted to get involved, and that was when we started getting involved, was right at that 2020 mark about till now. And so yeah, there's obviously organizations that have been involved in it for 30 years or more, but I think from a marketing and digital organization, we're one of the ones that shows up the most. And
Yeah.
we've seen those, and this is good advice to anybody looking to partner in that industry. It is, you have to show up, like you said. You show up one time when FEMA comes to your local town and have a booth one time. That's not going to cut it. You have to be around and talk to the members and understand their challenges, and be there over and over. We've offered lots of free advice in the hallways, and we do web audits. We often do a room where you can kind of pull in and just kind of let us destroy your website and give you some advice. And we love doing those. It's a lot of fun. And yeah, it's a great group of people, and we've really enjoyed being a part of it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, good for you guys for understanding that. So, so let's dive into the nuts and bolts of what you can, like you said, your kind of mission is to help these companies
Yeah.
kind of build their brand, help them out, make life easier for them by having things work sort of behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
So, when we talked a couple of weeks ago in the coffee shop, I was sort of fascinated first and foremost by what used to be the trend maybe 5-10 years ago to perhaps what is the clear path forward today. So talk a little bit about that.
Oh boy. Yeah. So what we're constantly amazed by, like I said, all due respect to all the companies we potentially work with, whatever. If they didn't need any help, we wouldn't need to help them, so, and I don't know how to do what they do. So all that set up front. But what is still true today in 2025 is that organizations are failing on the basics. You hear the big trends to, AI, of course, people want to talk about. And a couple of years ago, it was the Internet of Things and manufacturing 4.0 and, all this stuff. And yet on most of the people we're talking to, when we start looking at their website and their digital strategy, they're failing on more what I would call marketing, fundamentals, right? Like there's some brand confusion on the site. Well, that's our old logo. We just haven't updated it, but it's on our trade show booths. It's the other logo. Like what? Oh no. Like what are you talking, and then, or we don't have Google Analytics on the site. Literally probably 3 out of 5 people we talk to potentially to help don't have Google Analytics on their site. And I'm not even talking whether they look at it or not. Like they don't have it. They don't have access to it. It was attached to the receptionist's email address, and he or she's no longer there.
Yeah.
Like literally that's true all the time. And so the opportunity to use Google Analytics to measure who's coming to your site, what pages they're going to, how they got there is just not, it's free information that they're not taking advantage of. So, and the biggest one we see is just, if somebody has a nice looking website and it's mobile friendly, which more than I'm comfortable with saying are not still in 2025. We just had a call about one this morning that was not. That the biggest mistake we see people make is they bring them to the site. Let's assume the site is nice. They take them to a page. Let's assume they have pictures of their products and there's some good data there. They don't ask for the sale. There's no call to action.
Yeah.
And you might say, well, Michael, they're not going to buy a $300,000 tractor on the website. Yes, but do you have a find a dealer feature? Maybe put a button there for that. Do you have a request a quote feature? Maybe do you just have a contact us? Put the big red button on the page. They just got done reading. Now give them the button. And you might say, well, it's in the navigation or it's in the footer. But why make it a puzzle? It's right there. Put it where it should be. And then if that gets one more person out of 10 to take the action you want them to take, amazing. Lots of times we see they just have the phone number on there. And I'm like, that's what you want them to do is call the phone number? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, what about after 5 o'clock? And they're like, I forgot about that.
Whoops. There is an after 5 o'clock. Yeah.
Right. And so it's the most basic stuff. And I mentioned the mobile friendly thing. That's another one where it's just, I think I used the example when we talked, if we were at said coffee shop and 3 out of 5 people that came walking through the door hit their head, you're taller, you might hit your head sometimes more than me, but still, if 3 out of 5 people were hitting their head as they came through the door, the coffee shop would probably fix that door pretty quick. Well,
Right.
when 60-70% of your mobile traffic or traffic to your website is mobile, and you go for years not fixing that, you're just letting your customers hit their head on the door and then wander off and not come in your coffee shop to buy your equipment. It's crazy. And
Yeah.
that's not an easy fix. You have to rebuild your site probably to make it mobile friendly. But gosh, if in 2025 you're not recognizing by your own behavior, let alone statistics, that you use the phone more than your PC to do stuff, I I don't
It's
I don't know
hard to
what
help
to
you.
tell you. Yeah, I
Exactly.
don't know
Yeah.
what that.
Well, and you nailed it too by talking about a lot of these guys and gals and whomever out there might have a manufacturing company that doesn't you can't buy a piece of their equipment on the
Right.
website. You can't go in there and say click buy like we're so used to with Amazon Prime or something along those lines. But the way we do business now in our own personal lives is by clicking buy on Amazon Prime and having it show up to our porch
Yeah.
in sometimes 5-6 hours.
Yeah.
And so those same type of mentality is driven within all of us. So
Yeah.
why are websites still important, even though there might not be a way,
Oh, yeah.
you can't sell your equipment on that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, but you can inform people about, so first of all, you can make it so we'll get to this, I'm sure, but like first of all, when people when somebody is looking for some kind of piece of equipment, some kind of driller, some kind of tillage equipment, some kind of something, they're going to start with Google or Bing, Microsoft search, just like you would if you're looking for a pizza or a new car, a new home, a vacation destination,
Right.
whatever. You're going to go to the search engine and type in tillage equipment or tillage equipment for such size farm or
Yep.
whatever you might do, right?
Exactly.
First of all, you hope that you come up. We'll talk about how to make that happen later here, but first of all, you hope you come up. So if you don't, and even if you're the leading whatever or the second whatever in the industry, somebody that's doing a better job of marketing but maybe even doesn't make as good of equipment is now in the consideration set when they shouldn't have been ahead of you. But okay, so now you take them to the site. They can't buy the equipment, but they can get informed and they can download a brochure and they can request a quote. They could find a dealer. All these things could be available on the site as calls to action. They could ask questions through a chat. They could do whatever. Or they could wait 6 months to come find you at a trade show
Yeah.
where when six of your competitors are sitting right there next to you at the trade show. Yeah, I mean, and I still advise people to go to trade shows. I think you got to do a marketing mix. You got to do all that. Well, all that.
Yeah.
But as we joked about, it's like maybe the one show that's terrible that provides you no leads.
Yeah.
You take that budget and move it back over to the digital stuff, so you can have a year-round trade show online, which
Yeah.
is what we can provide, and give it to you when people are searching for not kind of what you have, but exactly what you have. And you want all the people at the trade show to be the people who like what you have to sell. We can make that happen.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we do that for lots of people, of generating the request for quotes or brochure downloads or find a dealers. All those are goals on websites we report on for the people that we work with, in addition to the ones where we're selling parts or smaller equipment online as a transaction.
Yeah, and sometimes the website it's really the easiest thing. Even if you don't
Yeah.
sell on it, it's
Yeah.
the easiest thing. I knew when I got into business for myself, I had to get a website.
Well, yeah.
Even though right now, I mean, you kind of poked it. I'm in the construction phase of
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
but there's some things that are broken on it, and I need to get those fixed right away. It's the easiest thing to do as sort of a quick little commercial about you and your business. And then to your point, if there's not a call to action, I think you used a phrase too on it. Like, if you're going to build a house, are you going to put your front door on the roof, or are you going to put, I can't
Yeah.
remember that
Yeah. Yeah.
explanation, but I was like, this is great.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's just a couple things. It's like people. We can use lots of funny metaphors, but it's people solve the wrong problem. That's something we talk about when we start working with somebody. And I advise this for anybody. It's like strategy first, right? You got to get. I mentioned data earlier. That's certainly important. You got to get the strategy right. Then you got to use the right tools to do the job, and then use those tools to expose the data you have and the data needs that you don't have, and then use all that together to solve the problem.
Right.
But if you're going at the wrong problem, then it's not going to work. So I think I talked about, yeah. I mean, you might be inviting people to a party at your house, and you throw this party and nobody shows up, and you're like, man, it was the carpet, or it was this, or it was something, whatever. And then somebody's like, did we send out invitations? You're like, no, we skipped that step. It's like, no, maybe you don't need to replace the carpet or move where the door is or do the other stuff. Like you didn't send out invites. That's the problem. And
Yeah.
now you could correct that, try it, send invites. Now if they show up to the house and then they all leave weird, maybe it is the dog or the carpet or the whatever it might be. But solve, solve the right problem, and don't make interacting with you difficult. Like you said earlier, like put the call to action right on the page so that it's not hard. Don't make them, like you said, don't make them go on the roof for the door. Don't make them look around for the step you want them to take. Like, don't put barriers in the way of them doing business with you, and ask for the sale.
Yeah. Is that metaphor similar? I could be wrong on what you're thinking here, but when you say like, hey, we didn't send out the invites, that's why nobody came to the party. Is that similar? I'm sure you get a lot of people coming to you and say, hey, Michael, we want you to do a full rebrand. Our logo sucks. We want new shirts. I got to have a hat. I want all these cool swag items to give away. And you're going, okay. I mean, I bet you're going, hey, great, I can make some money on this, but is that going to actually solve the problem that you're having?
So, yeah, that's a great question. So, exactly. We always want to ask, what is the problem that we're trying to solve? And it is funny how people it's like, I'm sure when people are on WebMD and then they go see their doctor and they have self-diagnosed and the doctor's like, that's adorable, but maybe you self-diagnosed incorrectly. Let's do a real scan and figure this out. Right.
Right.
So, yes. If your brand is sloppy or inconsistent or all those different things, it might be the place to start and fix. And we do that a lot. We tighten up brand guide. We don't reinvent as many brands as we do tighten up brand guides and make sure there's this consistency and make sure they're implementing it correctly. That's usually more the problem than we need to start from scratch because, whatever. But sometimes if it was invented in 19 whatever and it needs a refresh, then you could do that. But yes, assuming the site is of a certain quality, assuming the branding is of a certain quality. Mm-hmm. I don't want to use the phrase good enough in a negative way, but assuming you don't want to lead a horse to water and the water's bad, right? But like assuming the site is competent and assuming the brand is good enough that the web's not an art show anymore. Nobody's impressed that you have a spinning logo or whatever. They're there to do business and get off, right? Yep. Do the business, get out, go on to the next thing. So if it looks professional, you can find the calls to action, and it's on brand, it matches the brand they saw at the trade show, that's probably good enough, and that's probably not the problem. The problem is probably more about like the calls to action or lack thereof that we talked of earlier, or nobody's coming to your website, and so you're rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic and nobody is there to see it, right? They haven't looked at their Google Analytics because, again, the receptionist left and with her went the analytics. And so they don't know that they have 200 people a month or 2 people going to their website. So they're trying to like, what should we do different? Nothing. You're not showing it to anybody. Nobody's coming. You don't know if it's good or bad.
Right.
Nobody's there.
No one's there. You forgot to send out invites.
Right. So now we look at it and we're like, guys, nobody is looking at this website. So let's fix the things that are just broken first. Check. Now it's good enough. Now let's invite people to the party. Yeah. And then with Google Analytics, now we can see which pages they're going to and how long they're staying and what forms they're filling out or not filling out or whatever it is. Then we can figure out, okay, nope, they don't understand. They're not making this connection. Now let's improve the house or whatever it is, the website. But let's get enough people to the site where it's enough folks to evaluate how people are using it. And in many cases, there's just not enough people even coming to the site today to make that judgment call.
So what's the best way today in 2025 to send invitations?
Invite?
Yeah.
Oh, you want my
you keep mentioning Google Analytics, and obviously that is something that a lot of people may have no idea what the hell that even is.
Sure. Right. So baseline is Google Analytics, right? So Google Analytics is the tracking of how people are using your website, right? So you have to know how many people are coming to the site, where they're coming from, what they're doing, how long they're staying, all that stuff before you can then try to improve it, right? So Google Analytics itself does not improve traffic, does not send out invites, Google Analytics just tells you how many people are coming to the party and what room they're sitting in.
Right.
And what food they ate or whatever, right?
Yes.
To
Yes.
continue on this weird analogy. So that's what Google Analytics is doing. End of story. Then the ways you bring people to the site are about 5 or 6. They know your URL already because you're advertising and doing stuff, whatever. That's what we call direct traffic. There's search engine optimization, which means you've done all the hard work of putting good content on your site and doing backlinks and using technical elements on the website to have Google spider the site and organically put you like at number 1 or number 3 or number 5 somewhere on the thing. That's hard work and it takes a long time.
I don't want to lose your train of thought here, but talk
fine.
about SEO. It's such a buzzword now,
Yeah.
but a lot of people have, I mean, I'll plead ignorance here. I'm starting to learn about how important it is. But how to utilize it to its, how to, right now I might be utilizing that a 1 out of 10 scale.
Yeah.
I want to get to like 5 or 6.
Sure.
So talk about what it is first and then how you,
Sure.
yeah.
So it's the hardest work of all the methods I was talking about because everybody's, well, okay, not everybody, a lot of people ignore it, right? So you want to be one of the people that is not ignoring it, but the work is, Google never reveals their exact formula. Okay, so we have ideas. They tell you some things. You've done work to figure it out as an agency. Google doesn't tell you the exact way to get to number 1 on Google, right? Or everybody would do it. But the elements are having good content on your site, whether it's text or other things, building the site with certain structures and elements like H1 tags and title tags and other stuff so that Google gives those things extra points when it's kind of scoring it.
Yep.
Having people link to your site, indicating you're kind of a figure of authority, and Google goes, oh, it's a popularity contest, and it is, and a few other elements, right? And that takes a lot of work, and it's ongoing work, and a lot of people are competing for those spots. So some people, when they really go down the SEO route, search engine optimization route, they give up or they lose their patience and when you make a change, it's not instant. Like, so you add a new blog article to the site and you're like, okay, ready for the money. And Google takes a month to index it, and then it indexes it again in another month, and it slowly moves up. And if you're lucky, it ever gets to page 1, but it might be sitting on page 6 forever, and it doesn't really do you any good. So that's that method, and and there's lots of other things you can do there, but it takes a long time. So Google Ads is often the discussion we're having right next door to SEO. Google Ads, and you could do the same thing on Microsoft, on Bing. That is buying your way to the top of the search engines. So you may notice in search engine results when you look and you type in tillage equipment or whatever I said earlier, you see something there and it has the little word ad next to it versus an organic listing of those people who have worked hard to get their stuff up there. And people don't even notice it, or somebody will be cynical with us and be like, I don't click on those. And I'm like, well, somebody clicks on those because that's how Google pays for their offices and their homes and everything,
Right, exactly.
so somebody's clicking on them, and we can prove that people are clicking on them. So, if you do Google Ads, you have to have an ad budget, just like you would a radio budget or TV budget or anything like that. So
or print or whatever it is. Yeah.
Right. So let's say you put $1,000 of ad budget out there a month. Then you pay us or somebody like us, or you do it yourself, to manage the program. And it's like an auction. You bid on keywords like tillage equipment. You bid on that phrase and say, I'm willing to pay $1.05 for every click for that piece of equipment. So you win the bid. So what's cool about it, though, is somebody goes and searches for tillage equipment and you pop up. Number 1, you don't pay to be shown there. You're just visible there, and somebody sees it and they go, oh, ABC tillage equipment, I should give them a call, or I should do something. I write it down. That doesn't cost you anything. You're just exposed to all these people. But then some fraction of those people like what you say or that we say for you in the ad. And that's another place you're qualifying people. And then so maybe you say, we only have red tillage equipment, but it's the best red tillage equipment ever, or purple, or whatever color. I know people will get real sensitive about color.
Yeah, right.
but whatever color tillage equipment, you're like, we only make purple tillage equipment. And so hopefully, if the person's like, well, I don't want purple tillage equipment, they don't click on it because that's all you have. So, but if they like purple tillage, that sounds cool. Then they click on that ad, they go to your website, and it costs you $1 of your budget, right?
I gotcha.
So if you have $1,000 to spend for a month, you're going to attract about 700 to 1,500 people to your website. And that's pretty amazing, right? I mean, for a cost of us managing it and the cost of $1,000 for whatever, you with your website as it is, with all the faults that it might have, you don't have to necessarily fix anything. To your point about invitations, we've now invited a whole bunch of people to the party. Then in the ad, we said we only have sausage pizza.
Yeah.
So we told them, like, if you're a pepperoni guy, like, don't
show up. Yeah. Yeah.
So you said, so I do like sausage pizza. So you click on that, you land on the party or the tillage equipment example we said earlier, and then we hope that some fraction of those people then fills out the contact us form or the RFQ form or puts parts in a cart and checks out. So it's pretty easy to imagine, out of 1,000 people who've qualified themselves twice by searching on a word and then picking your ad to come to the website, that 3% of those people will put in an RFQ for a purple piece of tillage equipment, or 3% of those people will put $700 into a cart for parts.
Yeah.
Or 3% of those people will say, yes, I do want to be a dealer for you, or whatever the goal is. So you can imagine it's pretty easy to get to a 10-to-1 or 20-to-1 ROI. And it's on this ad spend. And this isn't like brand building that could be undefined, or some other kind of advertising that might take 6 months to show fruit. You're seeing the results of the ads that you're paying for today, like today.
Yeah.
But then, but even beyond that, then there's lifetime value of those relationships that has been established. And those 700 or whatever number I said, people that didn't convert today, they didn't choose to be one of the 3% that filled out the RFQ, they still made it to your website. And maybe they bookmarked it, or maybe they joined your email newsletter, or maybe they followed you on social or whatever. But there's some portion of those 700 that will probably come back and then do business with you again without any additional paid prompting to do so.
Well, and this is an analogy I've been using. People that have been listening to this podcast have heard it too many times, but I'll say it one more time. We kind of funnel our news now with Twitter, and we all have our feed that kind of guides us to what we like. And there's good and bad part. There's positives and negatives to that, by the way, but that's not the point. The point is it's funneling us to what we want to see and what we want to hear, and what we might not care about the local, ice cream social. Similar to that of these 1,000 people that you bought a Google ad for, they're qualified and they clicked on your site for a reason, because they had an interest in whatever the product is that you're trying to sell.
Right.
And you've got a way to now look at them in real time and say, okay, I have 1,000 potential customers. A certain percentage of them are already going to fill out an RFQ, and the other ones are pre-qualified. That would be a good place to start to go try to get business development and grow your business. Obviously, right?
No, it's amazing, right? And that's why if you can give them any other next steps to take, right? Like if you can give them any other. Maybe it's downloading a white paper. Maybe it's, again, joining the email list. Maybe it's something, because you don't have their names yet, right? All those, Google knows they are, but they've come to your site. If they don't fill out some action item or do something as a next step, you might have their, getting all geeky here, but like you might have their IP address, and you can do some additional extra kind of Google ads that kind of follow them around and that kind of stuff, but you don't know who they are yet. But if you can get them to, again, follow you on social, join the email list, sign up for a contest, whatever you might offer them to do to get promotional offers or whatever you might get them to do, then you can gather even more people. But yeah, it's a great solution, and it works faster than SEO, and the combination of those is great. You can do them together, of course, but depending on budgets, we often have people do Google ads before SEO, even because it's going to start to get you results within weeks, if likely, and maybe months. It's certainly going to be faster than what you're going to get from waiting for SEO to work.
And another thing, I gotcha. Another thing everybody talks about still today, which might be a little antiquated, is social media and the importance of it. So is it as important today as it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago? Talk about social media and how to utilize it the best possible way you can.
Sure. So obviously social media is a lot of things.
Yeah.
So I'll start with the basics, right? Like just having a Twitter or X account, you know, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all those things, right? So first of all, you you have a channel, you have to put content out there, and you have to get people to follow you. You don't instantly have people following you. So you have to do all that work.
Sure.
And then you have to keep it up. People are expecting you to then keep showing up with content. And you got to be sure who you're targeting. It's just when people don't invest paid advertising on social, other things into it, you can go and look. I would challenge all the people listening to this, go and look at your own social media. And because social media is kind of fun, somebody wants to be involved in it and post, Happy Memorial Day and post, whatever, on
Yeah.
there, and even post something like, hey, we have this new product or whatever, which is
Yeah.
more on target. That's great. Most likely you have 16 likes on that post. One of them's you.
Yep.
Three are family members of you, and 5 are other employees of your organization. And
There might be
maybe,
a cousin or an aunt and
yeah,
uncle
yeah.
in there.
And
Yeah.
maybe two are people that might have followed you at some point at a trade show, and they like your sense of humor, or they like the nice pictures you post of your equipment or whatever else. I promise you, most people are not getting hundreds of likes and hundreds of shares and hundreds of anything on the stuff that they're posting. If you're running an ice cream shop, or you're running, a restaurant of some sort, or you're opening an arcade in your town, or you're at a movie theater, like, yeah, that's the kind of thing. But because that has a general appeal, and if you or I have 100 friends on one of these, 1,000 friends on one of these social channels, we might share that. We're probably not sharing ag equipment or ag parts unless they're more entertaining than the average post. It's just not going to get done. Now, are there forums on Reddit or forums on some place that's like women in manufacturing, or a forum on people who love a certain brand of equipment or something? Or
Yeah.
sure, if you can find those pocket communities and you're willing to go participate in those pocket communities and take the time to chat with people and do whatever, yeah, then you're putting in some effort, and you found a micro community to go be a celebrity in, and that's great. That could be really good. But when most people talk about, is social media good for my business, they don't mean that deep dive stuff. They
Yeah.
mean, I'm going to do some light posting on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or all the other ones, and
About Memorial Day or the 4th of
about Memorial
July,
Day,
about
about
thing.
whatever. And it is good for recruiting. It's good for if you sponsor the local baseball team and you want to be a part of your community. Like, all that stuff's great. Like, I don't want to undervalue that. But if your goal is sell parts and equipment,
Yeah.
or find new dealers, or whatever it might be, and you're like, do I spend $1,000 a month in effort or time on social, or do I spend that same time on Google Ads, where somebody is typing in, want to buy a purple tillage equipment, and you show up?
Yeah.
I I can tell you which one 9 out of 10 is the right answer.
Well, and they've already built in, we're all, unfortunately, the niche that we're in can't compete with an ice cream shop. You just can't
Right.
do it. It's
No.
not going to happen. A 5-year-old wants an ice cream cone. They don't want to buy a piece of farm equipment,
Yeah.
you know?
No.
So we don't have the general broad audience. So
Right.
we have to find the niches, and you're saying Google ads is a way to do that. But I don't think you're necessarily saying don't utilize social media. Like LinkedIn is this fascinating thing
Yep.
for me. I don't
Mhm.
know. I'm trying to still figure out how it works, but
Yep.
I think it's an interesting outlet for business. But there's probably a better way to utilizing it than I am. I'm not sure.
Yeah. No, LinkedIn, there's a lot of power in LinkedIn. The the logic is sound, of saying, well, we're a B2B kind of organization, or we're not talking about ice cream shops or whatever. Maybe we should be posting on LinkedIn, not Facebook. I understand how people reach that logical
Yeah.
conclusion. And I'm old because I keep saying Facebook versus TikTok and Instagram. So whatever, and whatever next one I'm missing. But anyway, the fallacy of that though, is people hang out on Instagram and Facebook and just kind of doom scroll and just look at, they'll be at lunch and just kind of go through. LinkedIn does not have that kind of behavior. Like, most people go to LinkedIn for a purpose. A lot of times when they're at a trade show and they want to follow people and make connections for the future, or you're doing a speaking engagement, or you feel like, again, as a B2B organization, you should post there once in a while. But you don't get up. I mean, the statistics, right? You get up in the morning and you get on Facebook or Instagram before you go to the bathroom, right?
Yeah.
Not a lot of people are getting up in the morning and popping on LinkedIn before they go to the bathroom and going, oh, I got to scroll through all this. It's just not that behavior. So could you, get a following on LinkedIn and have business success? Of course. It's just like the same thing on any of these platforms. With the right amount of effort, you're going to find some success. But oftentimes we are still telling people, if they're going to do social, do the right targeting, do some paid targeting, do whatever. But I'm not sure, even if you're a B2B business, that I wouldn't advise you to be on the more used platforms from a frequency standpoint, because they are still humans. The target that you're looking for, who's going to be the B2B buyer, is still a person that's logging on to look at pictures of their niece or nephew or whatever it is. And if they are then presented with, hey, there's this solar powered, tractor, whatever, they might still be like, interesting. And maybe they're a big CEO that's busy all day, but at night they're looking at Facebook or whatever it is, and they see this thing and click on it and get back into their business brain when they have time to explore it. So LinkedIn, I would always pay attention to, but I wouldn't automatically discount, if you're going to go down the social route, that there's B2B value in the other networks.
Yeah, I hear you.
As well. But it's just, even the best paid advertising on social is still targeting a profile that may passively be theoretically interested in your product, but that's different than somebody who typed in a stated need into Google, and then you were presenting them with the Google ad and then leading them to the website. I just am always going to vote for an active stated need over a passive profile from a marketing standpoint. It
totally makes sense. And I honestly, after or before the conversation we had a couple of weeks ago, I was ignorant to all of that, but it totally makes sense.
Good.
Before we end, we got to get into a little bit of AI here. And I was watching I was scrolling through LinkedIn yesterday, and there was this video. People have probably seen it, because I'm assuming it's viral. But this gal came on LinkedIn and she said, everybody on LinkedIn's talking about AI is going to take over your job, and it's not the ones that don't embrace AI, but it's the ones that embrace it the most that are going to have it. And AI this, AI that, but nobody actually gives real AI advice on how to utilize it for yourself, for building your brand. So talk a little bit about, I want some practical advice, which I think would be great, but also just talk about what's your opinion of all this AI madness? I mean, it's nuts to me. It's crazy.
Yeah. So first of all, we've all been through these big shifts at this point. Those of us with a little gray in our beards, right? We've been through some of this before. We've been through Y2K. We've been through the internet itself, and everybody said, and the mobile phones, and we weren't going to ever have paper again. We weren't going to ever use desktops again. We weren't going to, as these new things come in to replace it. So, and it's, everything's going to be okay. There's going to be, and AI is a big deal, and there's lots to figure out legally. I think there's a lot of things to figure out, just, how you use it best. But we've all had micro doses of AI already, right? I mean, if you think about spell check in Word versus and auto, complete on your phones, and now it's just writing the whole paragraph for you, or it's doing other, it's making your Google search more effective and faster. But Google, if you showed Google to somebody 30 years ago, it's
blowing your mind.
It's crazy. So I think, look, we help, just like you're working with businesses to help, we do the same thing, right? You need, and AI can help with all this, but I mean, we can play the role of, a fractional marketing director with an organization, or a strategist, or a something, right? You've talked about, that's what you're doing too. It's like, you can play this role of coming, you need smart people understanding business goals and kind of steering an organization in the right direction. I feel like there's always going to be a human element to that. There's a lot of factors to take into account. And yes, AI is going to continue to get smarter, but there's, probably, I always think there's going to be a human role in kind of your top level strategy that you've got to figure out as a business, right?
Oh yeah,
But
for sure.
but do I then think that AI plays a role in helping make things scalable to solve, just like internet and computers did before AI, making problems scalable to solve? So if you wanted to run different scenarios, manually, it would take you a long time, and you can feed different scenarios to an AI, system and have it do hundreds of scenarios in seconds, and so re-looking at your problems and saying, if we thought this was just a good idea, but it was going to be labor intensive, now we can. One thing we are doing with clients is a little getting into the weeds, but I think one thing we're doing with clients is, so a lot of, getting ready for e-commerce can be quite a chore, right? You want to put all your products into your site so you can sell them online. But
Right.
people don't think about the fact that they have 10,000 products that need to be categorized and listed and have a description and have all this stuff. They've got some of that information in their printed catalog or in their accounting system or their ERP or their business system, but maybe they don't have 20,000 parts with categories on them. Now we could feed a file to an AI system, whether it's Copilot or others, and say, hey, here's a spreadsheet of 20,000 parts. Can you go look on the internet and look at other people's sites and look at other things and take a stab at what category you would put these parts in? And it does an 80% job of that.
Yeah.
And then
That's amazing.
you're doing a cleanup check program, as opposed to starting from a blank sheet of paper, let alone the obvious of it taking notes for you in meetings, and it, summarizing a long article into a short article for you, and doing some of that stuff that I think is just an extension of spell check and grammar check and all those kind of things. Some of that data is good, but yeah, it can do a lot of modeling, and I think we've got to be, it's the wild, wild west again with it a little bit, like it was with the internet that was first out. I do think there's, legal concerns that need to be addressed about, pulling in other people's works and saying, write me a story based on these two stories or these two logos and make me a logo between the, I mean,
Yeah.
we're all inspired by things, but that's a different step too far of maybe, I don't know. So there's a lot of, that's beyond my pay grade of figuring out
Yeah.
of how that's going to all work out. But I think, it's here. It's going to continue to evolve. I think the biggest thing where a lot of people are going to see it is, as I sort of alluded with the spell check stuff, the tools when on our SharePoint side of our business, we have Power BI and other tools that we're using to make your office more efficient, help connect people and stuff. All those tools are infused with more AI, with Copilot and such. You're going to see AI infusion into the tools you're already using. I think for a lot of people, some people are going to use ChatGPT or Copilot directly and use prompts and figure things out, and we're seeing that people already do that. But for a lot of people, that might be too much for them. But where I think those people are going to first experience it is AI being baked into things they're already using, and those things just doing a little bit more for you than they were already doing. So yeah, ask me again in a year, we'll see. But it's evolving quickly.
I know. Well, it's going to be probably a wild year, but I can't take credit for this. But Jeremy Gredicke, I had him on yesterday, and he's like, we still have to go and meet with people. And back, hundreds of years ago, we were walking to those meetings, and then we were riding a horse to those meetings. And now we're driving a car to those meetings. You still got to meet. It's still about a relationship, but boy, you can condense back 200 years ago, it would have taken 3 months to meet with 3 customers. Now we can do it in 3 hours.
Well, back to where you started this conversation, right? We can go right back there. There is no logical reason. I promise I'll fix this, FEMA. There is no logical reason for us to go to Fort Myers this spring and meet at FEMA.
Yeah.
There is no logical reason that we can't do all this online and all, whatever. But I promise you, going to this spring meeting with FEMA will be beneficial for us and beneficial for the people we talk to and beneficial for them, talking to each other. I have seen deals being made at tables and all that. There's a handshake is still worth something, and there's a lot of value in people going to that meeting and AEM and EMDA and all the other organizations as well. But then we met at those meetings. Now, like you said, we want to follow up and talk to them about next steps. Now we can do that on Teams or whatever.
Yeah.
And we don't have to be like, well, let's continue this conversation at the fall meeting.
Let's schedule another meeting to talk about the meeting we just had. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have to do that. We can now have these interim meetings online and kind of continue that relationship, and then meet again in the fall in Vegas, where it's going to be, and keep going. But so the hybrid of that works really well. But by your same logic, like AI is going to replace everything, there's no logical reason why we still meet in person today. But it just, people want to do that, and it's a mix of, just like any healthy marketing mix. Go to some trade shows, do some stuff online, just make sure it's all connecting in the middle. And that's, again, like, when we come into a business and help them as kind of that virtual marketing army or virtual marketing person, it's like, that's one of our first things we do is kind of look at all the things that are happening together and try to get that mix right. And we would rarely cut out a whole category. It's just getting the mix of those things correct, so that we're being as effective as possible.
Well, this is fascinating stuff, man. I got to have you back on when we dig this up. This is, I'm sure we could go down a bunch of cool rabbit holes and just kind of, figure it out. So in the meantime, we will schedule another one, but tell people how they get in touch with you, how they get in touch with Spindustry.
Oh, sure. Yeah. www.spindustry.com is our site. There's contact us forums on there. We do a lot of webinars on there as well that are free to listen to. They're recorded and kept on there after the fact, again, on all this stuff we've been talking about, and SharePoint, e-commerce, digital marketing, all that stuff, marketing in general. So there's a lot of stuff you can check out there. You can follow us on social at Spindustry and all these different things. I'm at Iowa Birdman on X with my last name, and you can find me there. You might learn a little bit about WWE and Star Wars along the way, but it's fine. It's all fine. And yeah, reach out anytime. My email address is just mbird, MBIRD at spindustry.com. And we would love to talk to any FEMA member or non-FEMA member about all of this stuff. And, of course we'd like them to work with us, but I just want them to do something. If they don't work with us, that's okay. Oftentimes a year later, we find that people haven't advanced that ball, and that's the sad part. We want to see them take advantage of all this stuff. The internet's supposed to be kind of the great equalizer that helps small companies compete with the big ones and make the big ones even better. And so do that. I'd love to help you, but even if you work with somebody else, just take a first step in digital marketing, take a next step in digital marketing in this next year, and I promise it'll be a good step.
Well, I'm setting up a meeting with you at FEMA for sure, and we're gonna have a drink and talk shop and talk how to improve everything on my end. So I'll be your first advocate. But man, I can't thank you enough for doing this. I appreciate it, and like I said, we got to do it again because this was a lot of fun. I'm chatty. I drink energy drinks. I'm happy to do this anytime. We're all good. Thanks, sir. All right. Thanks, Michael. Yep. Hey, folks, thanks for tuning into the Germinate podcast. If you found value in today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others in the industry. And join me next time as we continue to explore the innovations and strategies shaping the future of agriculture and business. Until then, keep growing, keep innovating, and keep germinating your success.